Okay, we're live. Councillor Arnold, you can begin the meeting when you're ready.
Thank you, Steve, and good morning all, and welcome to a virtual meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee for the London Borough of Hillingdon. This meeting is being broadcast live on the Council's YouTube channel, Hillingdon London. My name is Councillor Simon Arnold, and I am the chairman of this meeting. I'm just going to pause for a second as we admit some people into the room. Before we start, some important online housekeeping for everyone present. Please ensure any mobile phones are switched off or placed on silent. Please keep microphones muted when not speaking and then unmute to speak. Only one person should speak at a time, and I as chairman will call on those to speak and keep an eye on the room through my gallery view. Alternatively, you can use the raise hand button, which should be located somewhere around the top right hand corner of your screen. Before we move on to the formal agenda, I'd like to do a roll call of councillors present to confirm attendance. Please indicate you are present when I say your name. Councillor John Oswald.
Yeah, I'm present, Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Nick Dennis.
I'm present. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Also, please can others present indicate they are in the meeting. Licensing Officer Ginny McCurgy.
Yes, I'm present, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Legal Advisor Kerry Munro.
Good morning, everyone. Present, Chairman.
Democratic Services Officer Steve Clark.
Morning, Chairman. Present.
The applicant Harpreet Dand.
Present.
Thank you. Responsible Authority Daniel Ferrier, Licensing Authority.
Present, Chairman.
On behalf of the Manor Ward Councillors, Councillor Michael Markham.
Present, Chairman.
And interested parties, I believe we have Sue Daniels.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. There were some other interested parties that has indicated, but it looks like they have not arrived. Is that correct, Steve?
Yeah, so it's Peter and Pamela Edmonds who did confirm that they could attend, but they haven't showed up yet.
Okay. In terms of technical meeting control, if any councillor leaves the virtual meeting partway through for a period of time, e.g. lost connection, I will continue the meeting unless we are not at quorum, which is 2 councillors. Importantly, if a councillor drops out and has not fully heard the statements made by the applicant or other parties for a period of time, they will not be able to determine the matter, but may continue to take part in the meeting. To help avoid this, if a councillor does drop out, we may ask the relevant parties to repeat their statement. If any others present drop out during the meeting and have not heard all the statements made, Democratic Services will advise on the best course of action. Now on to the agenda. Apologies for absence, please.
No apologies for absence from the committee members, Chairman.
Are there any declarations of interest in the matters before this meeting? I'm seeing shaking heads, so that's a no. To confirm that all parts of business are marked part 1 and will be considered in public, is that correct? Thank you. And matters notified in advance as urgent. I don't believe there are any. That's correct. Thank you. Agenda item 5, part 1, public. We will now consider the following matter. Application for the grant of a premises licence, Hey Bartender Limited, 71 Pembroke Road, Ruislip, HA4 8NQ. Now, I'm sure you've all had an agenda sent to you, so we will follow the order of proceedings as listed in the agenda, starting off with an introduction of this licence by the licensing officer. Is that correct? Yes. So if I could ask the licensing officer to introduce this case, please, Jim.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, everyone. So you will have all received the report bundle and will be familiar with the application. This is a hearing to consider a contested application for a premises license from a private residence. The address which Councillor Arnold has already mentioned is 71 Pembroke Road, Ruislip, HA4 8NQ. As already mentioned in the report, the boom in e-commerce in recent times has contributed significantly to an increase in the use of third-party delivery services, providing a portal for ordering various items online. So this application too is for a dedicated delivery service from a private residence which do not offer public access to their premises and proposes to trade as a storing and dispatch site where orders for alcohol will be received online. The proposed hours on the application form are Monday to Sunday, 1200 hours to midnight, which have raised concerns about any potential disturbance to residents nearby, as the premises is situated on a residential road. This application has attracted 9 representations from interested parties, all of whom are residents in Green Walk, 1 representation from all the 3 Manor Ward councillors, and 1 from the licensing authority acting as the responsible authority under the Act. The licensing authority has proposed additional conditions in their representation to address the concerns raised by the objectors. I have detailed my observations surrounding the various objections which have been raised in paragraph 7 of the report. That's pages 6 to 8 of the agenda pack. I recommend the grant of the license with the addition of conditions as appropriate to uphold the licensing objectives. However, this is a decision for the committee members, and I would invite the committee to determine this application in whether to grant, refuse or amend it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ginny. We'll go straight on to questions. Councillor Oswald.
Curse of the mute. No, I don't have any questions, Chairman. Thanks.
Thank you. I will then go on to Councillor Dennis. Have you got any questions?
I have one question, and apologies if this question is for somebody else in this meeting later on, do let me know. But one of the things I'm interested in is in the public nuisance aspect. A lot of the people who have raised complaints about public nuisance. Now, potential public nuisance, in the report, you do sort of, on page 34, you do talk about sort of trying to mitigate those public nuisances. But I suppose that the question that I wanted to raise is that obviously I think from a personal point of view, I think limiting the hours so they're in more what would be considered normal working time is a positive step. But is it right that public nuisances can still be happen during normal hours? So between 9 and 6, for example, if a lot of cars went into the road or whatever, because it's between 9 and 6, does that mean we have to accept that as a committee because it's during normal working hours? Or if we think that the volume might create a public nuisance, would that be a reasonable thing for us to consider?
Thank you, Councillor Diniz. So yes, public nuisance can occur at any hour. However, the noises when they occur at unsociable hours of the day, when the background noise is reduced, can cause sleep disruptions and impair the peaceful enjoyment of one's property. So the chances of it causing nuisance is more at those hours than during the hours, say between 9 and 6, which is why those are the hours which have been proposed. But yes, it can be caused at any point of time.
Do you have a follow-up, Councillor Dennis?
No, that was a useful clarification. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, if there are no further questions, we will move on to the applicant. And you have to forgive me if I mispronounce your name, Harpreet Dand. If you'd like to present your case, please.
Okay, thank you very much. So my name's Harpreet Dand, or Haps Dand, and I run a company called Hey Bartender. I just want to give a brief introduction to myself. I'm an established food and beverage consultant, and I specialise in spirits, wines, and cocktail training. Essentially, before COVID, I was working in restaurants and offering masterclasses in-house. Then COVID had hit, and the restaurants started offering a service utilising my skill set to train and entertain guests at home online via Zoom. The classes started picking up, but then we all of a sudden hit our third lockdown, and a lot of my clients, the bars and restaurants, started to close their doors. However, the demand for these online classes were still very big. Now, there is a bit of a misconception and a bit of confusion as to what I'm doing, and I understand with the application going out to on the street and the neighbours seeing it what it was, and on normal face of it, it looks like I'm running an off-license service over here, but that is not the case. What I'm offering was an online masterclass service where somebody that wants to celebrate their birthday or anniversary that can't do it with their loved ones would organise a Zoom party, and I would then send them currently I've been sending them a shopping list of ingredients to get, and then I go and I host a party for them virtually. Now, what I'm hoping to do is to be able to bring everything in-house and be able to send them miniature bottles and the juices and the fresh fruit in a hamper box to their house so they can enjoy a masterclass with their friends and families. Now, the other confusion that may have happened was my hours of operation. Under no circumstances do I want to be working all of those hours, but my understanding was my hours of operation, the hours of operation I put in were the hours of operation that I would be working, not the hours in which the packs would be sent out. It might be somebody had booked a masterclass on a Friday evening for their 30th birthday for 10 friends, and it may go on from 12 o'clock or 11 o'clock till 12 o'clock. So I base my timings based on the hours that I would be running my masterclasses, not the hours that people would be able to order drinks. Also on that point, nobody is able to order any drinks on the same day. They're not able to order a bottle of vodka or anything like that. It was more of a case of, it's my 30th birthday, I want to have a party with my friends, we want to learn how to make Mai Tais, we want to learn how to make a espresso martini, or we want to do a vodka tasting session and understand the different variations. That will then, they give me a date, and then that will all be sent out to them during daytime hours. Under no circumstances would there be anybody ever coming to the house to collect, or would there be a delivery driver going out here from late hours of the evening. Most of my operation would be done during the daytime. It would be myself packing the boxes and taking it to a delivery depot point. I've already discussed this at length with licensing and said, you know, we do have if we were sending out alcohol, we do have a two-step age verification process to ensure the safety of people that are receiving the packs. That was one part of what we do. The other part of what I do is I also provide mobile pop-up bars to venues as well and to people's houses. So that's the other side of the business. So they could then rent any of my equipment, any of my bars, glassware and things like that. All of which I do keep in storage in my garage over here and at a storage centre at Hillingdon Borough Football Club that I also own as well. So yeah, that's pretty much a bit of a brief summary. If there are any questions, I think you guys can ask questions now. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous on this, my first time doing this. I'm so used to hosting a class where I'm encouraging everybody to do a shot and make a drink and start shaking. So this is a little bit nerve-wracking.
Well, thank you very much for that. I think that was some clarifications, because I know there were worries from people that it was a sort of a just eat business where people could phone up and have alcohol sent at any time of night, and obviously there was a worry of bikes and cars, and I think you put some clarity on that, so I'll thank you for that. I'm going to go to questions. Councillor Oswald, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just one question. I think where do you intend to have your pickup point if it's not going to be on the premises?
There won't be a pickup point. There'll be no collections, no pickups whatsoever. It's all going to be delivered. So currently, I send out cocktail shakers and instruction manuals, and all of those get sent via delivery points. So on the top of my road, there's a place called Mailboxes, and I'll just take it over there. They're like one of those delivery centres, so I can just take all of my boxes over there, and they're responsible for the delivery. They offer a few different variations, different delivery partners as well. I often choose the one that always does the age verification.
Mr. Oswald, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so just to be clear then, are you saying that you're going to deliver all of these goods yourself? So there won't be any vehicles coming to the property, whether it's motorbikes, mopeds, cars, vans, or whatever. Are you saying that you're going to be doing the delivery?
Yes, I won't be delivering it myself personally. I'll be sending it to a delivery point as a depot. So mailboxes, they will then have, they're a shop, so they'll then have they have a delivery driver that comes and picks up from there, but nobody will be coming here. The only deliveries that ever come here, and this is going to sound really bad, but are my Uber Eats and Deliveroo's, because I'm a pretty lazy chef. But yeah, that's about it. Nobody will be coming here to pick up at all. The only people that have come to my house in the last few weeks have only been my mum and my sister, and an Uber Eats driver, so that's who I only see.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Chairman.
Sue, I can see you've put your hand up. Unfortunately, this part of the deliberations just involves the councillors. You will have an opportunity later on in the meetings to speak, so we will have to come back to you later on. Councillor Dennis, have you got any questions?
Yeah, no, I do actually. I had quite a few of them have been struck out by your explanation of how your operation will work. So thank you for that. So just to get it completely right, because this is extremely important to me, because my main worry really was about volumes of traffic and changing the nature of a residential area into something which isn't really a residential area in a sense, and obviously increasing traffic on small roads can create a public nuisance. But you're actually saying you're going to store the stuff in the garage, and then what happens is if people order them, you personally will take it to the delivery box thing, and then the delivery people will pick it up from the delivery box thing. So actually, nobody, so DPD or whoever, are not going to drive up to your front door, and you're going to load it into the thing. Is that absolutely correct? Have I got it correct?
Yeah, nobody will be coming to my front door.
Okay, so this is a question I might ask for licensing. I mean, if the license could be made clear that is the case, I think that would make a big difference, because ultimately at the moment it says stuff like drivers who come to your house will not leave engines running, and vehicles will be parked considerately, and they'll do things quietly, and all this sort of stuff. And these are all the type of things that you try to do to mitigate. Obviously, as you live in the street, you understand, stuff like that happening in the street where people live is not what people want. But the type of operation you're describing does sound to me to be a lot more discreet and a lot more less likely at all to cause a public nuisance. So I wonder if the licensing requirements can be changed to basically confirm that's the case. Would you be okay?
It's also a lot less invasive on me as well.
Yeah.
It was me being able to then streamline the operation, and having a mail delivery centre literally 4-minute walking distance from my house just streamlined everything. And the last thing I want is a bunch of drivers coming to my house. I mean, I'm not going to deny I will have deliveries for my stuff. Like I had a delivery of 2 large boxes of cocktail shakers the other day that was done from a driver. But then that's no different from, everybody having Amazon deliveries right now. And that was maybe, once or twice a month.
Okay, because that's my other question, really. I wanted to get an idea of the volume of deliveries that will be happening to your house. So obviously the vast majority of stuff will be you taking things elsewhere, but when you obviously want stock to come to your house, I mean, can you just confirm to me the sort of amount of volumes and the amount of possibly deliveries in a month you think you probably will?
Well, so the crazy thing was in January, February and March, it was like, loads of inquiries coming in, but it's changed again. I mean, my industry is changing so quickly. Boris announced the exit for lockdown, and the business plans change now. And instead of me now having more inquiries about these online masterclasses, I'm having more venues asking me to come to their venue and host the classes in their place. So I don't know. I mean, I'd love to say it's going to get busier for my personal reasons, right? But I think I'm going to be more so going out to venues and offering this service. However, I still want to be able to offer this service for those that are at home, isolating, that can't go out. So when I do have, in answer to your question, when I do go to stock up, or when I am planning to stock up, I don't keep vast amount of alcohol. It's only like, if you've given me an order for this week, I'm going to buy for that order. And most of the stuff I order are miniature bottles. So it's not a vast amount of alcohol, and that would be, I could either order that via Amazon and it comes in a small delivery box, or I would personally go to a cash and carry myself. And those would all be done during sociable hours, and it's not, like I said, a vast amount where there's going to be a big Tesco lorry pull up with cases of alcohol. I simply don't have the space or even the cash flow to warrant something like that sort of operation.
Yeah, no, okay. 'Cause, I mean, obviously, I want your business to be as successful as possible. It does sound like a fun business. I'm drinking tea at the moment. It's a bit too early for a shot, but it's the kind of thing, that nowadays when people are searching for entertainment. So I think we're not concerned about the business idea as such. You can completely understand where my questions are coming from.
Yeah, of course.
The impact on your neighbours and the neighbourhood, which is obviously, if you live there, you understand that, and that's some good clarity. I suppose my last question is, I mean, how will you deal with complaints?
In regards to whom? What?
Well,
customer complaints, or
happy with something that involves your business. What happens then?
What, in terms of customer complaints?
No, not customer complaints. In terms of your neighbours, because I suppose what I'm getting at is quite often in life, a lot of problems are caused between lack of communication, and ideally, when a situation arises, if good communication can happen straight away. So, for example, if something happens, a delivery driver comes to your door, leaves their engine on, I don't know, a neighbour's not happy about that. What I would be looking for in an ideal world is that they know that you're approachable, they can talk to you about it, and you can actually, you seem to be a very approachable guy at the moment also online, but you see what I'm getting at, because obviously what we don't want to do is come back, if we do give the license with conditions on it, we don't want to come back in 6 months because things have broken down and take it away from you. So ideally what I'm looking for from you is to be able to sort of manage complaints from your neighbours in an open and professional way.
Oh no, I completely agree. I mean, under normal circumstances, but then even under normal circumstances, this may not have occurred. But I was a licensee at a previous venue, and when I was doing any changes or anything, I would personally go and knock on the doors of my neighbours and have a conversation with them. However, December, January time when I applied for this, we were smack bang in the middle of a huge lockdown. And in an ideal world, I would have loved to have gone and knocked on all my neighbours' doors, introduced myself and say, hey, my name's Haps, this is what I'm doing. If you have any issues, please do raise them with me myself. It would have been a great way of me introducing myself to my neighbours as well, because I've just moved in. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. I did want to write everybody a letter and get it out to them after this and see how that went. So they could then speak to me and see that I'm approachable and I'm not a mean guy. Also, I was hoping that this open format that we've got over here is a chance for them to see my face, see that I'm not a mean guy, that I am approachable, and if they do want to knock on my door or give me a call to speak about any grievances, any problems that they may have with my operation, then they're welcome to do so. Or even if they want me to host an event for them to help them feel connected with their friends and family, I'd be more than happy to do that for them as well. In fact, it might even be a nice idea for the street to get to know each other a little better by having a drink together and celebrating us exiting lockdown. I mean, it's a great way to get to know your neighbours and your friends, and it's something that I would definitely like to explore.
Yeah, no, okay. Well, that's everything from me, but you obviously understand where I'm getting at with all of this.
So, oh no, 100%, 100%. I don't want to seem like I'm an alien to them. I want them to feel I'm approachable and they can come and speak to me at any time. I do have an open door policy with my neighbours. We've got to live together for a long time, I'm hoping. So I want to be able to get on with them.
Cool.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dennis, and thank you for your answers there, Harpreet. We can pick up on some of this slightly later on in the discussions, but I think it's important for now for us to move on to the responsible authority. Daniel, I'm turning over to you.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, members of the Licensing Subcommittee. My name is Daniel Ferrer and I am the Licensing Team Manager at the London Borough of Hillingdon. I'm here today representing the Licensing Authority as a responsible authority in relation to this application for a new premises licence. Just to recap, though it hasn't been altered, the applicant has applied for 12 to midnight Sunday to Thursday and 12 to 0200 Friday and Saturday, and that's not been altered as yet. The Licensing Authority has made this application for a representation under the 3 licensing objectives, and they are prevention of crime and disorder, prevention of public nuisance, and the protection from children from harm. And just by way of an update from me, after the report was sent out, I sent an email to Mr. Dand on the 8th of March. I have not received a response to that, and so a lot of this is even news to me, and so I'll have to sort of alter or navigate changes to this representation from what he has just said in his opening, but I can sort of go through my representation. Before I go through to the details of my representation, you'll see the full representation as it was dated on the 11th of February 2021. That's page 33 of your bundle. So a lot of proposals, suggestions mentioned, but I plan to sort of like go through some of our concerns. And the general concerns was firstly, and there's no disrespect to Mr. Dan on this, the application for us when it was received lacked detail of the actual operation. Just in 5 minutes that he has mentioned has clarified a lot of the things, i.e. the products and the nature of their business. But at the time of the application, obviously we had concerns with it, and some we still do. The most important part of your application is that the operating schedule, where there will be potentially conditions attached to the premises license, but we find them, as it stands, quite generic and non-specific. We are told, and it's been confirmed, that it is going to be where a secure lock house garage is going to store alcohol, and so you will see page 33 conditions, proposed conditions of 1 and 2 makes that very specific on our part. For example, the premises shall operate for the storage and dispatch of an alcohol which has been ordered online, something that wasn't confirmed beforehand. Moving on to the specific licensing objectives which we have to concern, the prevention of crime and disorder is still one that holds, and I think with these types of applications, CCTV and incident logs, Councillor Dennis touched on complaints, is a way of redressing that and somehow mitigating some of those. And so you will see in my representation on page 34 details of CCTV requirements, because it was quite light in the application. So for example, comprehensive CCTV covers the storage of the alcohol where it's placed, a minimum of 31 days, and immediately available for the police or an authorised officer, and for a member of staff, and I take it that would be you, Mr. Dan, to be familiar with the workings of that CCTV. And in addition, as I said, an incident logs to record your checks and balances, if you like, about crimes reported about the premises, any issues with CCTV, any refusals of sale of alcohol, and that's what we expect a good operator to have in place. So we still maintain those concerns. Moving on to prevention of public nuisance. Now, with those times, which are still sort of set, we haven't altered them, are very, very late, midnight and 2 o'clock. And I appreciate what you've mentioned, that would be the hours of what you would be working. But as it stands, that's the hours that you've put on for the sale of alcohol. And so when that kicks in, we are looking at issues in terms of public nuisance. And I take on board the fact that you said that, you know, the deliveries will not be taking place at your premises. You're going to walk it to an area, and a lot of that, in my mind, will be limited. But there's also concerns about waste disposal. So proposed on condition 11, you know, I'm assuming there'll be some sort of waste that you still have to sort of resolve there. In terms of boxes and cardboards and putting it out. So those requirements, I'd like more detail on that. And the third licensing objective was obviously the protection from children from harm. And I appreciate that you've mentioned that two-stage verification, but we say that that should go further. And there are some concerns because, like most remote internet sales, you don't get to see the final consumer, if you like, and what their appearances is and how old they are. So where are those checks? It seems like to me from what you're describing is that those checks and balances will be done by the person delivering it, and you'll be relying on their measures. So we can discuss that more. I'll just finish my representation. Then I can take your comments. But in the proposals that I've mentioned on page 35, a lot of information flagging up on your website or the platform that you're going to sell it. So quite clearly there's checks about age verification, that no one's purchasing alcohol under the age of 18, which is quite a serious one for us. In terms of the deliveries, well, that was going to be done by a third party now and will no longer be an issue. An element of training as well, if it's yourself or you get an additional member of staff, how you trained in those requirements for responsible sales of alcohol. And Chairman, I've moved quite, I've had to chop down a lot of my representation, but those are still my outstanding concerns with the actual application as it stands. I'm happy to take any sort of questions from yourself or the other members of the subcommittee, but for now, those are my submissions.
Thank you very much, Daniel. And Harpreet, I can see you're itching to answer some of those questions. Unfortunately, this is not the time for you to do that. This is the time where it's the councillors who can speak to the licensing responsible authority. So we will direct questions to Daniel, but you will have an opportunity later to answer some of those questions. Daniel, if I could kick off with the first question, which is, having heard the applicant's representation, do you feel more confident now or less in terms of granting this licence than you did before?
I'll have to be honest, Chairman. Obviously, there's more confidence, and it's sad that we had to go all the way up to the hearing to find out the nature of the business, where we could have organised that, then put our conditions around that. Obviously, I feel more sort of confident, but I still think with those issues that I've mentioned, there are appropriate steps that the licensing authority can put in place to mitigate some of these issues. And let's not forget, there'll be other parties where they have concerns as well. But from our point of view, it goes a step in the right direction, but I think I'd flag the areas which still need to be covered.
Thank you. Councillor Oswald.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. No, thanks a lot, Daniel. No, I think your report basically says it all about the protection from children from harm and public nuisance and crime and disorder. It's quite a full report and it's quite clear. So no, I don't really have any questions, but thank you for the report. It's very good. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dennis.
No, nothing from me.
Okay. Well, thank you for that representation, Daniel. I am sure there may be some questions for you when we go into the more substantive discussion, which moves us on to other interested parties. I'm going to start off with the ward councillor, Councillor Markham.
Thank you, Chairman. I speak on behalf of all three ward councillors. That's Councillor Douglas Mills, Councillor Susan O'Brien and myself, Councillor Mike Markham. Certainly it has been interesting. As already been said, we've gained much more information about the nature of the operation. So many of the comments that we were going to make really aren't relevant. Our major one, however, and the one we are very keen is that we fully support the recommendations or the conditions recommended by the licensing authority, particularly those that restrict delivery into and out of the property before 9 AM and after 6 PM. We had other concerns about levels of traffic, and to be honest, I was going to ask for you to consider restricting the operation of the business from Monday to Saturdays, 9 AM to 6 PM. There are some other actions that we can take as ward councillors. For example, you may not be aware there are double yellow lines and parking restrictions. And certainly we will talk to the relevant council departments to get those repainted and better signage to make it absolutely clear about parking restrictions around the property. And certainly we will ask the council's department responsible for traffic enforcement to keep a closer watch on that corner. As has been said, Green Walk is a very narrow road. It's in a conservation area. Pembroke Road is a busy bus route, main road, and where the property is on a corner. So in brief, we would urge the committee to accept all the conditions laid down by the licensing authority, particularly those relating to deliveries in and out of the property after 9 AM and before 6 PM. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Markham. If I could just ask you a question, do you feel more comfortable now, having heard the applicant's testimony, than you did before coming into the meeting?
I would feel more confident so long as it's legally agreed.
Thank you. I'll just see if anyone else has any questions for you. Councillor Oswald, do you have any question?
No, Chairman, thank you.
Councillor Dennis?
No, Chairman, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Markham. We will now move on to other interested parties, and it's over to you, Sue. You may speak.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you hear me? Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Our tenants, I think you received something like 9 objections from the residents in Green Walk, and we've had quite a lot of conversations with them, quite a lot of contact, and I have to say that they're not particularly proficient on videoing conferencing, which is why they're not here today. It's not out of lack of interest, but they know I'm coming to speak for them, and I have spoken to them. You spoke, Mr. Dant, about an event for the street to get to know each other. In fact, the street knows each other very well. They've been neighbours for a very long time, and most of them have sort of brought up families alongside each other. So it's quite a community there. And they are really quite alarmed by this. We have had quite a lot of incidents over the last couple of years, I have to say, in relation to parking nuisance, but also there have been an increased number of break-ins recently, which has added to the tenants' feelings of insecurity, which we're working hard to alleviate with them. But I think something like this is difficult for them to accept, and you have explained quite a lot about how you intend the operation to work. I'm not quite sure why that wasn't on the original form, because the original form gives quite a different impression, and that does worry me to some extent, because you are a professional man and you could have made those points which might have alleviated some of our concerns, but they're not in writing, and that does worry me a little. The thing that particularly worries me is I know the market boxes of which you speak, the kind of drop-off point, and the idea that you would be able to take your alcohol supplies to that drop-off point, which is 4 minutes walk from your residential establishment, is a bit of a stretch. I don't quite see how that would work unless they were very small boxes. I can see how it would work for cocktail shakers and things like that, but I can't see how it would work for booze, and I'm sure you'll. So that's the only amount of booze that you're sending off to someone. In which case, that's not a problem. But when I look at your website, it gives quite a different impression. Your website, the Hey Bartender website, gives quite a different impression. If your license does get granted, and you want to make a good impression on the neighbours, which may not be your main commercial selling point, because they're probably not going to be your biggest customers, although they might be, who knows. I think I would consider having another look at the website and taking down things like the porn star martini video, which might give the impression that you don't particularly want to give. And I think that might be a bit mean of me, but you can see why my residents are unhappy and concerned. So I'm going to leave it there. But we do have, despite your reassurances, we have significant concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. If I could just ask you a question, presumably you live local to the applicant, do you?
I don't, but my residents do. No, I'm the director of the society, so I know the area well.
Okay, thank you. Have any of the councillors got any question? Councillor Oswald? No? Councillor Dennis? No? Okay, well, thank you there. Right, everyone has made appropriate representation, so we're now going to move on to a more open discussion part of this meeting. So I'm going to start off with Councillor Oswald. Do you have any questions for any of the parties present?
No, I'm quite comfortable at the moment with what I've heard and what I've read in the report, Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Dennis.
Yeah, I'm going to throw out a view, and anyone can speak on it who wishes to. So, Chairman, I'm going to make you work for your civic duty today. So where I'm at this moment in time is I agree actually quite a lot with Councillor Markham that obviously what we've heard today is a big improvement in what was on the form, and that is a good thing if that is the reality, and I do assume it will be. Now, Councillor Markham said, you know, if it could be legally agreed that is what is on the form, then that would be more appropriate. So what I'm wondering as well is if the restrictions that have been proposed for the licence can even be adapted further to confirm what is on the form. I think that could be very useful. So, you know, the big point for me is really, I haven't looked at the website, so I haven't seen the Porn Star Martini video, but I think, you know, the Porn Star Martini video, I assume, is obviously a marketing tool to create the excitement of having the cocktails, I assume. It's not going to be stuff that's happening in the garage or on the street, I assume. So you know, there is different sort of ways of doing things, but I think a lot of what we're talking about here is a lack of communication and understanding. And ultimately, if this gentleman's operation operates in a way that people don't really notice it that much, which is the impression strongly being given, then obviously there's going to be very, very little issues. Which is obviously a very, very good thing. And I think there is, in a sense, this is not something we can sort of put conditions around, but it strikes me that essentially the biggest step forward, as well as putting in the right conditions to match the reality of the operation, is for there to be, you know, good communication between the parties. My final sort of point is, how easy would it be if suddenly the gentleman's business sort of exploded and lots of vans started turning up, even though they weren't meant to? I'm not saying that will happen, but you know, and then suddenly, because if we do grant a license with these exceptions around them, but public nuisance does actually happen beyond the scale that we sort of think might happen after this meeting. Obviously, I want the residents to be able to come back to us and say, actually, the reasons why you granted the public licence aren't for real, and our road is turning into, you know, a dangerous sort of lots of van thing. So I just wanted to know what would be the process if that was the case. And I asked the question, you know, of course, in extreme circumstances, because if we are to give the licence with the conditions around them, we want to make sure that those conditions can be kept to, and if they're not, then we can listen to the matter again. So that's my rant, basically.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dennis. I'm going to try and go through some of your points there. Firstly, the matter of the Porn Star Martini, quite frankly, I think how businesses run their own marketing is not something for this particular committee to address. But on the conditioning, I think that's a very valid point of what conditions we place attached to this licence. And I don't know if it would be you, Ginny, that would talk on this, or whether it's Daniel, but on the conditions, if we, having heard from the applicant and having heard about his delivery structure, if we were to take those items and turn them into conditions, would that be appropriate or acceptable? I don't know if Daniel or Ginny wants to jump in there. You.
I'm mindful that also we have legal on board as well, and Kerry, so I'll sort of try and respond by being the licensing authority. In terms of conditions, it ultimately is up to the subcommittee hearing and what is appropriate. So from what the gentleman has said, from all the evidence that you gather, then you can draft the conditions. What I would say is, and Kerry will probably support this, is that they have to be, you know, obviously proportionate, enforceable as well. On Councillor Dennis's point about consequences of if it suddenly goes crazy or there are issues, then what I would say is the effect of those conditions which would be put in the premises license is actually a criminal offence under the Licensing Act. But in addition to that, if there are issues associated with the licensing objectives, for example, spillover from all of these issues, then potentially the licensing authority or a other responsible authority can review the premises license. So bring it back here and say, actually, this is not working. We're going to remove you as the DPS, Mr. Dad, or revoke the premises license. So those are the possible avenues that could happen in terms of consequences. But I think the main thing is getting it right here and now. The mixture of what Mr. Dan has said and the evidence is appropriate conditions tailored to his business right here and now. We can't predict the future, and so it's conditioning it, if that's the route that the subcommittee are minded to, operating at this moment in time. I don't know if that helps, but those are my comments on that.
Thank you, Daniel. I'm going to bring Kerry Legal Counsel in a moment. I just wanted to say that just the fact that we're discussing conditions at this point, don't read into that. That means that we are looking to approve it, this application. That will take place later. But what we try and do is explore all avenues so that we have everything appropriate. Kerry.
Thank you, Chairman. And to supplement what Mr. Ferrier said, the applicant, we have to look at the facts and the applications on its merits now, and we deal with what we're seeing now and address the concerns. But in the future, should the business change in any other dynamic, if it was the business was to get more custom or there was more intensification of deliveries at the premises, the applicant is the premises license holder is well in his right to make an application to amend as well. He can come back and just say business dynamics have changed and this is what he thinks is deemed fit on his business model. Quite rightly, Mr. Ferrer is correct in saying that if anybody has a concern with how the business is being displayed, should the license be granted, how it's been conducted or run, or things wasn't as it seemed from the hearing or from the application in reality, any person with an interest can make an application to review, provided it's not vexatious or repetitive of what we've heard today or frivolous. It will be weeded out if that is the case, but they can make a review of the premises license if it was granted, and it will come right back here before decision makers to reflect on. That's it.
Thank you, Kerry, and I think that's a valuable note to say. The two notes there. One is that this license can be reviewed if granted at any point, and also a breach in the license, as Ms. Ferrier pointed out, is a criminal offence. So I'm just going to ask another question to Harpreet. I think you've heard around the discussions that one of the reasons we're here at the moment is because there was quite a lot of confusion within your application, and what you've brought out today, I wouldn't say differs from the application, but obviously it's a completely different business from how we read it on the application. Could you just talk us through why that is and why you didn't put this detail in your application?
Well, quite simply, this is like almost what I'm doing is almost like new uncharted territory. I never, as a food and drinks consultant, I never in a million years thought I would be doing my business virtually. So trying to then articulate that onto a form which is designed to apply for a license in a premises for either off license and on license trade, off trade and on trade, was a little bit difficult for me to basically articulate it to you guys in a way. I'd spoken to licensing, and I believe I tried to explain it to them as well as possible, and they did understand what I was getting at. But again, like I said, it's probably, I just didn't know how to articulate it on a form. Now, I wrote down as much as I could, and my website is it's descriptive in terms of my masterclasses, and it tells you exactly what I do. But that's only one part of my business. I'm a consultant. I go to bars and restaurants. So if it does seem misleading that, I'm advertising drinks from bars and things like that, it's because I work for those bars. But the masterclass thing is something that is just what I'm doing over here. It was just very, very hard for me to be able to. I didn't know how to articulate saying, "Hey guys, just so you know, no alcohol is going to like get delivered from here." The only reason I put down all of the checks about cars coming over here and things like that were eventualities to show that I had thought about if there was an occasion that somebody did come here and pick something up. I had thought about my neighbours and how it could impact them. I just was very bad at filling out the form, I guess, and that's on me. And I do apologise. And yes, I did Jesus say, you know, I am a professional at what I do, and I should have filled out that form better. But you've got to understand, it was very hard for me to go and get somebody that was a licensing specialist in the month of end of December and the beginning of January during lockdown to try and liaise with them and figure out how to do this. I was stuck at home. I've only got the power of my phone and people I know within my network. So trying to get that legal advice at that time and trying to understand how to fill out that form was a little bit difficult. That is on me, but I'm trying to rectify it now, you know, trying to explain exactly what I'm doing. And, you know, I'm happy to take on board any of the restrictions that the council puts on me, and still hoping to operate in that sense. There were a couple of points, if I could just touch up on, that people had spoken about. I know there was the Daniel had mentioned about CCTV. Now, I'd already put that in place. I had conversations with the licensing before, and they had said to me I needed to have CCTV on my premises. So I had installed CCTV at the front of my house, on my door, covering my outhouse, basically covering all parts of my property, and that is fully recorded, and it is accessible to the licensing authority and the police at any time should they need it. In terms of getting rid of rubbish and cardboard boxes, like you've mentioned, recently I've had quite a lot of furniture delivered, so I know how to deal with this, and I wasn't just leaving it outside for the dump. I had a process in which I was getting rid of my furniture's rubbish, and that was me going straight to the skip and making sure nothing was left outside or causing any issues for the neighbours. In terms of my website is not really misleading. The moment you go onto my website, it asks you for an age verification. So it says, are you over 18? If so, then you can proceed onto the website. So I've clearly made sure that I've followed those rules. Then in terms of the drinks and everything, or the classes and the products that I sell, it is now, I know I spoke to licensing Ginny about this. She said it was somewhat misleading, and that was basically down to me. You know, from a design point of view, it was done one way, but I had to look at it from a view that's, you know, somebody else is looking on it and they might look at it differently. So I had that changed and amended straight away. So I'm happy to take on board any of the comments that the council, the licensing authority, the police, even my neighbours give me, and try and work towards those. And I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Has anybody else got any questions for anybody else? Kerry.
Thank you, Chairman. I would just think this is the opportunity, everybody, to think. I mean, if you're of the view that the application should be refused, and that's your take, then it's noted. It can be noted at this stage. But this is the opportunity. If you were with the application being granted, what conditions do you think would be useful and proportionate and sensible for this premises license to be implemented and for the business to flourish and have respect for the rubbish that you're concerned about? This is the time where you can make your submissions. There has been on Appendix 2 by the responsible authority a host of conditions which will be considered by the chairman and members. But is there anything that is missing, or anything that, in light of what's been spoken about now, that you think is prudent to be included for consideration by members after the hearing? This is your time to make it known.
Thank you, Kerry. Obviously, those deliberations will take place in private, and if we do impose additional conditions, I don't necessarily think we need to discuss them in this forum. But I take your point on board, and I'm sure the other councillors in the meeting do as well. Has anybody else got any questions for any other parties? No, in which case we will move on to closing remarks. Now, the order of this is slightly different, so we will start off with the interesting parties. So, Sue, I would like you to make a closing remark, please. You still there?
She's gone.
Sue, are you still there? No. Okay, we will move on then to Councillor Markham.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I would just like to reiterate the concerns that we have as ward councillors, and that many of the residents also have, that we have spoken to. Certainly, it's been most helpful to receive more details about this method of operation. However, we would stand by our main thing, that if you feel you can't turn down this application, then we would certainly welcome the implementation of all the conditions laid down by the licensing authority. And as I said, that we ourselves as ward councillors will take action to ensure better signage regarding parking. There are parking restrictions, there's residents only parking and that sort of thing, to reassure the residents that, you know, we are doing all we can to allay their fears as to the public nuisance that will inevitably be caused by this business. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Markham. Sue, you disappeared there for a moment, but if you would like to make a closing statement, please.
Yes, thank you. Sorry I disappeared there. I just had to pop out. I suppose what I would say was what I said earlier, which is I am not convinced, I'm afraid. The form says one thing and the applicant says another thing. And the form says that there will be collections of alcohol from the premises, but the applicant says there won't be, or only in extreme circumstances, and that the only kind of deliveries will be such as a taking to the mail collection box. And that does not correspond with what is on the form. So, as I said, for myself, and I think for the tenants, we are not convinced by this application. And so we would like you to oppose it.
Thank you, Sue. We will take on board those comments. However, as we said, we can condition for what has been said today and not necessarily what's on the application if this was to be granted, and any breach of that condition would be a criminal offence. We will move on to the responsible authorities. Mr. Ferrier.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be quite brief. Firstly, that we appreciate the applicant's clarity in his additional submissions. Today, we take them on board. At this point in time, the licensing authority's representation is still being maintained with the concerns that I've raised earlier. And I think, like the resident has just mentioned, Mrs. Daniels, certainty in terms of how we move forward in terms of this application would be appreciated. A lot is said, and a lot of movement has been made from the form to what's going to happen in practice, and it's just getting that clarity from our point of view in terms of how we enforce the matter further. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. And we now move on to Hillingdon Council's licensing officer, Ginny, if you'd like to make a closing statement, please.
None from me, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then the final closing statement comes from the applicant. Harpreet, if you would like to make a final closing statement, please.
I want to thank everybody here for taking their time to listen to my remarks today. I do apologise if it wasn't made clear. I hope a lot more is clearer to everybody. I'm happy to work with the council and everybody on any restrictions, and with the neighbours as well. I do want to raise, while I've got here, about parking on this road. I understand the need for privacy and parking on this road. I live on the corner of Pembroke and Greenwalk, and recently there has been temporary traffic lights put up over here. So my road gets used as a throughway. So I understand the need for, and I see cars every day, so I understand the need for privacy for the neighbours and how important it is not to have all these cars over here. So yeah, I'm happy to work with everything and with the council on this. So yeah, thank you for your time, guys.
Thank you very much. The subcommittee will now adjourn and move to a private deliberation on this application prior to announcing its decision. This could take a while, so you do not have to rejoin this virtual meeting. A decision notice will be issued to the applicant in writing within 5 days of the meeting, or you can contact one of the council licensing officers later today to hear the outcome. Thank you everyone who took the time to attend this virtual meeting today. And could I now please ask Democratic Service Officers to end the YouTube broadcast?